What if some of the most mysterious objects ever captured by military sensors were still unexplained today? What if, after years of secrecy, investigations, and public pressure, the latest Pentagon UFO files revealed that there are still cases nobody can fully explain? And what if the biggest surprise wasn't what was found in those files, but what remained unanswered? Over the last few weeks, newly released Pentagon documents, videos, and reports have reignited one of the most fascinating debates of our time. Around the world, people have been asking the same question. What exactly is flying through our skies? Are these advanced military technologies? Unknown natural phenomena? Sensor errors? Or could there be something else that we still don't understand? 12 days after the latest release of Pentagon UFO files, investigators, journalists, researchers, and UFO enthusiasts have been studying every detail they can find. Some expected shocking proof. Others expected complete explanations. Instead, what emerged was something far more intriguing. Tonight, we are taking a deep dive into what was actually revealed, what remains unexplained, and why these files continue to capture global attention. This is the Pentagon UFO Files Update, and what you're about to hear may completely change how you think about the mystery. For decades, reports of unidentified flying objects occupied a strange place in public discussion. Many people dismissed them. Others became deeply fascinated. Military pilots occasionally reported unusual sightings, but most of those stories rarely reached the public. That began to change in recent years. Governments started acknowledging that unidentified aerial phenomena, often called UAPs, were worthy of investigation. Unlike the term UFO, which carries decades of cultural baggage, UAP became the preferred term for objects or events that cannot immediately be identified. The shift was significant. For the first time, government agencies openly admitted that some encounters remained unexplained after investigation. That doesn't mean aliens. It doesn't automatically mean secret technology. It simply means investigators lacked enough information to reach a confident conclusion. Yet even that admission was enough to transform the conversation. Suddenly, reports that might once have been ignored became the subject of serious analysis. Military personnel began speaking more openly. Researchers gained access to new information, and the public became increasingly interested in what governments actually knew. Then came the latest Pentagon file releases. The announcement immediately attracted attention across social media, news outlets, podcasts, and online communities. People hoped these files would finally answer long-standing questions. But as analysts examined the material over the following days, a more complicated picture emerged. To understand why these files matter, we first need to understand how we arrived here. The modern era of UFO investigation did not begin with internet rumors. It began with trained observers, military pilots, radar operators, sensor specialists, individuals whose jobs depended on accurate observation. Throughout the years, numerous reports described objects displaying unusual characteristics. Some appeared to move in unexpected ways. Others seemed difficult to track. Many were eventually explained, but not all. That distinction is extremely important. The existence of unexplained cases does not automatically prove extraordinary explanations. However, it does create legitimate questions that continue to drive investigation today. As more information became public, interest grew rapidly. Television programs discussed the topic. Academic researchers examined available data. Former military personnel shared experiences. Government agencies created new reporting systems. And gradually, the conversation moved away from simple belief versus disbelief. Instead, attention shifted toward evidence. What data exists? What do the sensors show? What conclusions can be supported? And perhaps most importantly, what remains unknown? These questions became even more relevant following the latest Pentagon releases. 12 days later, investigators are still analyzing the material. Some findings appear relatively straightforward. Others remain controversial. But before examining specific revelations, it's worth understanding how difficult these investigations actually are. Imagine observing an object from miles away. Weather conditions may be changing. Sensors may capture incomplete information. Different systems may record different details. Pilots may have only seconds to react. Analysts later attempt to reconstruct exactly what happened. It's an extraordinarily challenging process. This is one reason many cases remain unresolved. An unresolved case doesn't necessarily indicate something extraordinary. Sometimes it simply reflects insufficient information. Yet unresolved cases continue to attract attention because they remind us that our understanding remains incomplete. And that brings us directly to one of the most discussed aspects of the recent files. Several reports describe incidents where available data was insufficient to identify the observed object with confidence. That single fact generated enormous discussion. Supporters of extraordinary explanations viewed it as significant. Skeptics argued it merely reflected limitations in available information. Both perspectives contributed to an ongoing debate that remains active today. As analysts continued reviewing the files during the 12 days following release, certain themes began to emerge. Again and again, investigators encountered the same challenge: data gaps, incomplete observations, limited sensor coverage, insufficient corroboration. In other words, uncertainty. And uncertainty is often less satisfying than certainty. People naturally want answers. They want definitive conclusions. But real investigations rarely operate that way. Instead, they proceed cautiously. Evidence is evaluated. Alternative explanations are considered. Conclusions are revised as new information becomes available. This careful approach may seem slow, but it remains essential. Without it, speculation can easily replace analysis. The Pentagon's recent releases demonstrate this challenge perfectly. While some incidents received plausible explanations, others remained categorized as unresolved. That distinction has become one of the most important aspects of the entire discussion. Because unresolved does not mean extraterrestrial. But unresolved also does not mean solved. It simply means investigators still lack enough information to reach a confident determination. And that reality continues to fuel interest worldwide. As days passed after the release, researchers compared reports, reviewed available footage, and searched for patterns. What they discovered was not a single dramatic revelation. Instead, they found a collection of cases representing varying levels of certainty. Some were likely explainable. Others remained open questions. Together, they painted a picture far more complex than many expected. The mystery was not disappearing, but neither was it transforming into proof of extraordinary claims. Instead, the files highlighted something perhaps even more fascinating: the limits of current knowledge, the challenge of identifying unusual observations, and the ongoing effort to separate fact from speculation. As investigators dug deeper into the released material, attention soon focused on several particularly intriguing reports. As investigators dug deeper into the released material, attention soon focused on several particularly intriguing reports. These cases shared one important characteristic. Despite analysis by trained personnel and access to multiple sources of information, investigators could not confidently determine exactly what had been observed. For many people, that fact alone was remarkable. After all, modern military systems are among the most advanced in the world. Radar systems can track objects at great distances. Infrared sensors can detect heat signatures. Aircraft carry sophisticated equipment designed to monitor activity across large areas. Yet even with these capabilities, some observations remained difficult to explain. That realization led many observers to ask a critical question. If advanced systems cannot immediately identify certain objects, what does that tell us? The answer is more complicated than many headlines suggest. Technology is powerful, but it is not perfect. Every sensor has limitations. Weather can interfere with observations. Distance can distort appearances. Objects may behave differently depending on viewing angle. And sometimes multiple factors combine to create situations that are genuinely difficult to interpret. The Pentagon files repeatedly highlight this reality. Investigators often emphasize caution. Rather than rushing toward extraordinary conclusions, they focus on available evidence. They examine flight data, radar information, environmental conditions, witness testimony, and whenever possible, additional supporting information. Only after reviewing all available evidence do analysts attempt to reach conclusions. Even then, uncertainty sometimes remains. That uncertainty has become one of the defining features of the modern UAP discussion. For years, public debate often focused on extreme positions. Some claimed every sighting represented alien visitors. Others insisted every report could be dismissed immediately. The latest files suggest reality is far more complex. Many cases have ordinary explanations. Some involve balloons. Others involve aircraft. Some are linked to environmental factors. But a smaller number remain unresolved because available information is incomplete. Understanding that distinction is essential. The existence of unresolved cases does not prove extraordinary explanations. However, it does justify continued investigation. And according to many observers, that may be one of the most important lessons from the latest release. The purpose of these investigations is not to confirm preconceived beliefs. It is to gather information, analyze evidence, and improve understanding. That process continues long after public attention fades. 12 days after the latest release, researchers were still examining reports line by line. Questions remained. Could additional data emerge? Would future investigations provide answers? Might some unresolved cases eventually be explained? History suggests that many will. Over time, new evidence often changes understanding. Events that once appeared mysterious sometimes become clearer as additional information becomes available. Yet history also shows that certain cases remain difficult to explain, even after years of analysis. Those are the incidents that continue attracting attention, not because they prove extraordinary theories, but because they highlight genuine unanswered questions. Another important aspect of the recent files involves transparency. For decades, critics argued that governments provided too little information about UFO investigations. Whether those criticisms were entirely fair remains debated. However, recent releases indicate a greater willingness to share at least some information with the public. This does not mean every document becomes available. National security concerns remain important. Sensitive technologies must be protected. Military capabilities cannot always be disclosed publicly. Nevertheless, increased transparency has changed the conversation. Researchers now have access to more information than was available in previous decades. That allows broader analysis. Independent experts can review released materials. Journalists can examine findings. And the public can better understand how investigations are conducted. Many observers consider this one of the most significant developments in the entire UAP story, not necessarily because of any individual case, but because of the overall shift toward openness. As discussions continued, another fascinating question emerged. Why are people so captivated by the UFO mystery? Part of the answer may lie in human curiosity. Throughout history, people have looked toward the sky and wondered what might exist beyond the horizon. Exploration is part of human nature. We seek answers. We search for patterns. We ask questions about the unknown. The UFO phenomenon taps directly into that curiosity. It combines mystery, technology, science, aviation, national security, and the possibility of discoveries yet to come. Few topics capture imagination in quite the same way. That does not mean every claim is true, nor does it mean every mystery has an extraordinary explanation, but it helps explain why public interest remains strong year after year. The latest Pentagon files became another chapter in that ongoing story, a chapter filled with data, questions, investigations, and unresolved observations. As analysts reviewed the material, they also considered broader implications. Even when sightings have conventional explanations, understanding them remains valuable. Unknown objects in restricted airspace can present legitimate concerns. Misidentified aircraft can create confusion. Sensor anomalies can affect operations. From a security perspective, identifying unusual observations is important regardless of their ultimate explanation. That practical reality often receives less attention than sensational theories. Yet it may be one of the strongest reasons investigations continue. Authorities want accurate information. Pilots need reliable reporting systems. Analysts require quality data, and decision makers need clear assessments. The recent files demonstrate that this work remains ongoing. Far from concluding the discussion, the release generated new questions. Some observers focused on unresolved incidents. Others examined investigative methods. Many simply appreciated the opportunity to review additional information. Whatever perspective one adopts, the files offer an important reminder. Real-world investigations are rarely simple. Evidence can be incomplete. Conclusions may evolve. Questions often remain open longer than people expect. That reality may be less dramatic than fictional stories, but it is also more authentic. And authenticity matters, particularly when discussing topics that inspire intense speculation. As we reach the end of this update, one fact stands above all others. 12 days after the latest Pentagon release, no definitive evidence has emerged proving extraterrestrial visitors. At the same time, not every reported incident has been fully explained. Both statements can be true simultaneously, and together they define the current state of the discussion. The mystery remains. The investigations continue. The questions persist. Researchers will keep analyzing data. Governments will continue reviewing reports. Pilots will continue documenting unusual observations. And the public will continue searching for answers. Perhaps future releases will provide greater clarity. Perhaps additional evidence will solve long-standing mysteries. Or perhaps some questions will remain unanswered for years to come. For now, the latest Pentagon UFO files reveal something both simple and profound. There is still much we do not know, and the search for understanding is far from over. Thank you for watching. If you found this investigation interesting, consider sharing it with others who enjoy exploring mysteries, science, aviation, and the unanswered questions that continue to challenge our understanding of the world around us. Because sometimes the most fascinating discovery is not finding all the answers. It's realizing how many questions still remain.